Good afternoon, everyone. It is November 16th, 2020, and you are listening to the new WCEG Network, and we're located at WCEG talkradio.com. If you're there in your browser, just click your live stream, or you can watch us live on your smart TV via YouTube. Just type in WCEG Network. You'll find us there. And who am I? I am Norman A. Carter Jr., your host for the next 30 minutes to an hour. And we are the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group where we speak life into the community. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG Talk Radio and WCEG, let me correct that, WCEG underscore talk underscore radio and at WCEG Network. And by the way, the topics and opinions are those of the show host, moi, or Miss Damita Chatman, or our special guests, and they are not the opinions of the WCEG Network. We thank you for your continued support. Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned into a special edition of Issues and Answers. I am my assistant co host today is Ms. Damita Chatman, chairperson of the Citizens for Elected for Excellence in Elected Leaders. And our special guest today is Mr. Kwanza Hall. A little bit of background, some of you may have heard him on a prior program, and many of you know who he is, but I'll just give a refresher for those of you out there who may not know. On December 1, there will be an election to fill the unexpired term of late Congressman John Lewis. After a runoff election on September 29, 2020, in which there were five candidates, Mr. Kwanza Hall and Dr. Robert Franklin became the top two candidates, with each earning less than 50% of the vote. 31,009 votes were cast in this election. Now, these candidates hope to earn the majority of the 12,305 votes that were cast for the other candidates. Mr. Hall has an extensive resume in political and community service. Just a little bit, Mr. Hall was elected to the Atlanta Board of Education in 2002, and he served there for 3 years prior to being appointed to Atlanta City Council. During his time on election board, he worked toward closing the achievement gap and contributed to reforms that improved the performance of our Atlanta public schools in statewide tests. Some of his accomplishments, of course, he was on city council from 2005 to approximately 2017, where he elected not to run for city council and ran for mayor of Atlanta. Some of his accomplishments: he wrote and passed legislation with unanimously support to reclassify and decriminalize marijuana in Atlanta. He wrote and passed legislation to fund and require police body cameras in Atlanta. That was in 2016. He wrote and passed legislation to increase public safety through community security cameras and many police precincts. Mr. Hall, welcome to our program.
Thank you so much, Norman. It's great to be here and great to meet you, Damita, as well. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you for coming. Mr. Carter, you want to start off?
I always say ladies first.
Hall, first of all, I know that this Senate race is very important. And then I also know it's less than 2 months in the seat. So what are you going to do in 30 days to get something done in District 5?
Great question. And thank you for the question. You know, it's been on everyone's mind. And first of all, we have been without representation in Washington since Congressman Lewis passed away in July 17th. There's been some issues that have been in front of Congress that no one has been able to speak on our behalf, number one. So 700,000 citizens are without representation right now. Number two, in December, there will be a continuing resolution vote on the budget to keep the budget going, or we'll have a shutdown. There also may be a CARES Act second stimulus vote. Chuck Schumer just called for that. It has been ping pong between the Republicans and Democrats. Obviously, Democrats want to see urgency now with the right type of funding. Republicans have wanted to give $0 to the states, and that's been an impasse there. There is the MORE Act, which is the decriminalization of cannabis at the national level, and safe banking is linked to that, which would allow the dollars from that industry to come back into the banking system, as they currently cannot be within the federal banking system because cannabis is a Schedule 1. And there's one or two other items like that that are significant votes that will impact our nation. And then also, as a former council member, I have passed 752 pieces of legislation. So there may be one or two pieces that I could at least get on the table for conversation starters, some resolutions I might be able to pass. And then I think just the idea of the backlog of constituent items, or items that need some attention for people, whether it's Veterans Affairs related items, whether it's related to HUD, the EPA, the Department of Transportation, Homeland Security. There's a lot of items that have not had the attention of a congressperson since they've been backlogged for the last 4 or 5 months. And in addition to that, under the COVID crisis, there's definitely a need for a voice. I had COVID in July, for a voice at the table that can speak to the challenges and the opportunities if we are able to take these lemons and turn them into lemonade, with COVID Innovation Zone, which I'll be proposing to my colleagues in Washington, assuming the citizens elect me. And then there's also the Federal Infrastructure Bank, which is on the table. That's on the table right now as well. The Federal Infrastructure Bank is a $4 trillion proposal to repatriate offshore account money into the United States economy. And that is something I'm a big proponent of. As you look around District 5, President Trump said some very negative things about countries around the world, but also spoke negatively about District 5 being the worst district in terms of infrastructure in America. And went a little further, but I won't say the words that he used. And Congressman Lewis was taken aback to that. We had a big press conference. We all attended and rallied and supported Congressman Lewis when he did that, when President Trump made that statement. Well, my statement back to the president is, we have some unfinished business in District 5, and we want to see a pilot for the infrastructure bank happening in District 5 in honor of Congressman Lewis. That's another piece that I would like to put on the table. Justice reform is in front of us. We know that it has been unjust in this country for people of color, especially African Americans, descendants of African slaves. And there is a need to see restorative justice around the 1994 crime bill that has impacted at least 2 million, primarily African American men, for possession of, in general, primarily nonviolent offenses. There needs to be some restorative justice there, and I'm willing to put that on the table and fight for that as well. So there's a couple of things that are out there that are pressing and urgent in these very tumultuous times that we're in this country. There's a need for leadership. There's a need for having someone who is sitting at the table. Usually what happens in elected bodies is that there's a lot of stuff in the news, but that's probably, somewhere between 20 and 40% of what's really going on. It's like an iceberg. You look at the iceberg on the top is what you see, but all below the water is what you don't hear about. No one has talked about the 40% of the budget that goes to military spending. Usually military spending is something that's a ping pong in our country. No one's even talking about those dollars because we've been so distracted with everything else. But that money still would be spent. And I propose that we should be deploying it in urban America as opposed to sending it all over the world. We should be uplifting our people and supporting our families and children who are most in need of the stimulus checks and who are most in need of some educational supportive services. As we know, the education system has been disrupted, and it needed to be. It's exposing the digital divide. Our families and children in urban America in District 5 don't have access to computers, sometimes no access to power, and let alone Wi-Fi. That's at a reliable rate. So, and they surely don't have access to having live-in tutors, like many people on the north side outside of District 5 who have a lot of privilege. So I'm going there to fight for citizens of District 5 for every 30 days that I'm allowed to be there. And anyone on staff, I will expect them to pretty much commit themselves to 24-hour service for the time that we're there.
Well, and another thing, someone told me to ask a question. District 5, and I guess that goes over like the Clayton County area. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. It goes from Phipps Plaza on the north of the city all the way south to Morrow Lake City. So northern Clayton County is within the district, right near the farmers market, State Farmers Market, Forest Park, College Park, East Point, and it goes east to west from Candler Road and all the way west to Fulton Industrial.
Okay, well, this was the question that she asked me. She said she's been over there off of in the lakeside, Morrow area. She's been over there like 40 some years, and she said
Yes.
has ever been done over there. And so she said, why should we vote for these people that they don't do anything? And she said, yeah, you can look at the different changes and the different up there by, say, Lenox Mall, but what are you doing on the south? And so
Yes.
to say I tend to agree with her because I'm not original down here, Mr. Hall, but even riding down Fairburn, when you get to like Fairburn and Campbellton,
Yes, ma'am.
from the county line, it has always been looked horrible. And I'm quite sure those homeowners over there, they invested in their homes and
Yes.
trouble. So
Yes.
I say if you're going to put your money, and if you're going to run for these seats, you got to speak for this side of the world and also speak to the other side of the world. If I go over there and go past Phipps, it's a different population. I understand it's a different, different people over there, but I still say that elected leaders, when you get elected, you're everybody. You represent everybody. But what I found out that when these people get elected, you don't see them no more in the communities until it's time to run for office again. So that needs to change. And so I hear what you say you're going to do in the next 30 days, and then I'm going to just let me ask you, 1,200.
Can I insert something on that real quick? I want to say I agree with you. I was only describing the boundaries of the district. I've said explicitly, just give you the boundaries when I was saying where it was on the north, south, east, and west. But personally, I grew up in Southwest Atlanta off of Campbellton Road, and my mother still lives over there. So, I grew up on the southwest side of town, and I know for a fact that the amenities, the services, the investment, the federal, state, county, city does not come to the south side. And we've got to have elected officials who stand up for that. And I'm committed to standing up for everything south of 20 is where the attention needs to be. Whether it be Panthersville Road on the DeKalb side, on the Clayton side, or over in Fulton Industrial has been left out and left behind. We haven't had leadership that really has stood on the table about getting those resources there. And you can count on me to focus on some job creation and innovation zones in those parts of town, because everywhere else has it. So don't even worry about me on that one. And, I served for 15 years as an elected official, but there's no one who can say that I wasn't always available, accessible to everyone in my district. But I had a true intentional focus on the parents and the children, families that lived in the Boulevard Corridor, which was the area with the greatest concentration of poverty in the Southeast United States. Average income is $3,000 a year. Average rent is $12 a month. There's 700 families, primarily young African-American mothers who are 18 to 25 years old who live there. It's kind of a place of last resort. Atlanta doesn't have public housing, right? So this is a privately owned Section 8 housing. And what we've done is, is my sound still there?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so what we did was we began to create an initiative called the Year of Boulevard. And to revitalize the housing, we created new senior housing, new mixed income family housing, all preserving the people who already live there to get the same quality of life that everyone else does. I have a track record for doing this kind of work. When no one else wanted to roll up their sleeves and get in there and help the families and children, they were like, just get rid of that place. I was like, oh no, we need to keep this type of housing, because everyone has a potential point in their lives when they need a place that's affordable. And except we've all been there. So we've got to have a range of housing options for our citizens. And that's what I'm committed to doing. And I'll talk to the HUD office about how we find more, because, you know, a lot of the families who lived in Atlanta when the public housing was closed down here, they were shipped out to south side of town to Clayton and to DeKalb County. And that was a problem. You know, that's a problem because it was never designed for people to just be relocated without thoughtful housing and transportation options. There's still no MARTA yet all the way in Clayton like it should be. And on the south side, the buses don't run the same rate as they do on the north side. So those are things like that we've got to fight for. And I'll be a voice for that. And you can count on me to be 24-hour accessible and to be able to fight for those who don't have anyone to speak up for them.
Thank you. And my last question is, I know that these people are hurting, they can't pay their mortgage, and that's long, they can't even buy food. So would you vote for another stimulus package? And $1,200 just ain't gonna do it for some resident people. Would you vote for a higher stimulus?
Absolutely. I support a bigger stimulus. I mean, it should be a consistent stimulus. You know, like we got people been behind for 2 or 3 generations, and now you talking about giving us $1,200 a month. I mean, we got to do some restorative justice in the Black community, if nowhere else, because we still haven't gotten reparations. So I'm talking about reparations and everything else in this conversation. It's not just that little money to keep your lights on. We need way more than that, and I will fight for that for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Well, hello, Mr. Hall. I just have a few questions.
Yes,
Try
sir.
to get through them real quickly.
Sorry to be so long-winded, but y'all got me excited.
Oh, no. That's great. No, that's information that we need. In fact, you stepped on some of my questions, which is a good thing. But Mr. Hall, I've read your plea for unity. And what I'd like to know is, and some of I'm sure our listeners would like to know, is have any of the candidates that you defeated reached out to you to support you in the December 1st election?
Yes. So I have the support. So on that plea for unity, we have 3 letters signed by Mabel Thomas, Keisha Waits, and Steve Muhammad, first and foremost. I have the direct endorsements of Keisha Waits and Steve Muhammad.
Very good. That should be noted. This country is in the midst of a global pandemic. You and your family have been the victim of this COVID-19 disease. 2 companies are alleging they will have 20 million doses of vaccine ready for distribution by the end of the year. Not all of those doses are meant for distribution in the United States. Whom in your constituency do you feel should get the first consideration for vaccination doses?
Well, I mean, I'm honestly have to say I'm still a little reticent about the whole vaccine thing, because we know historically in the African American community with the Tuskegee syphilis experiment and other such experiments, we don't want to be guinea pigs. It should not be guinea pigs. As they were talking about that vaccine going to Africa first, and so I'm proceeding with caution on it. We need a solution, hands down, but we need to dot the I's and cross the T's about who's making these products, what's in these products, what are the side effects, and they probably need to do more clinical trials with people who want to be tested, as opposed to rushing, and then especially not making it a mandatory thing if people don't know what it really is and what the potential negative issues that could arise as a result of it. We don't know enough about this. I'm encouraged by the idea and glad that people have been working very hard on it, but I'm still, I'm kind of 50-50 with what the real solution looks like. I do know we need to double down on more consistent testing because the more consistent and rapid and accessible the testing can be, at least people will know when they need to quarantine, and they'll know that they have it, so they're not carrying it around and getting more vulnerable people exposed to it and causing them to contract the disease as well, the virus. So I think that we do have a potential for some type of solution, but a vaccine that's injecting more people with it, I'd have a little bit of concern. I just have to be honest. And, I think there may be people in the more highbrow communities who are ready to receive it, and they can spend the time to research it. But the last thing I want to see is people just taking some vaccines and saying the poor community needs to get it, because that wouldn't feel right. Something wrong with that
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. Do we know if they've tested? I know they tested it on people, but I don't think they tested it. Had they what would we call where years ago they had lab animals tested on that, and
Yeah,
uh,
they need to get
uh,
people who want to volunteer. People like to do the science trials and volunteering and stuff, but let's don't experiment just on the poor community and the Black community. I don't want it to be an experiment. Let's not do that.
okay. Let's see here. The have you had a chance to look at the fiscal 2021 budget? Because
I've done sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was going to say because there's some things in there uh, that you even touched on your speech, like uh, environmental concerns, justice reform, uh, regulation regulation relief, which is and better trade deals, and these all fall under the auspices of the Congress. Do you think you'll have time to get into that with your co-Congress people before you during the time that you're there?
Yes, absolutely. One thing about starting a conversation, you start a conversation right, and it's like starting a fire. It'll catch on by itself
Hmm.
if you use the right ingredients and you're coming at it from the right perspective. I think in this case, we have to start the right conversation um, around some of these issues that really matter. And I say this in all humility, but sometimes when you're in the forest, you can't see the trees. You know what I mean? You're so engulfed. So I think our leaders there have been so undergone, and they've not been able to be in Washington. There's been a lot of challenges. Sometimes you get punch drunk, and even many have been there for a long time, so they're just used to ratifying things. And I remember being a council member. Sometimes you get into the rigmarole of just doing the same thing over, and you kind of don't break out of that and actually do the things that are necessary without some urging, some nudging, something that shakes you up. So I'm willing to be a person who steps in there to shake some of the conversation up. I'm not seeking re-election. I'm not seeking to be friends with everybody. I don't have to have the lobbyists loving me or anything. So if we've got an agenda item that, say, WCEG has something that bubbles up, you're like, hey, Kwanza, we need you to put this on the table. It's going to make some people mad, but will you put it on the table? I think that's what my role is in this moment, is to be the person to kind of shake some things up and say things nobody wants to say. Like, that budget's too damn big. But if you are going to be spending money, can you spend it with some people who need it for a change? And don't buy $1,000 hammers. I'm sure we still could probably find $500 hammers up in there.
Oh yeah.
Trillions of dollars they spending over there, and the Star Wars stuff they spending on war. You know what I mean? I'm sure that's the case.
Yes, absolutely. And which kind of goes into my next question because I know that they have what I guess you have to run the gauntlet so to speak, once you get into Congress as a junior member. So in order to help you out, have you been able to be in contact with um, people who are already there who might be willing to facilitate your entry into and maybe some of the programs that you would like to get into?
Yeah, so I do have relationships in Washington, and I've begun to have those conversations with various stakeholders there. I've been trying not to be too presumptuous, if you know what I mean. I don't want to,
Sure.
get ahead of myself, but I have reached out to Nakima Williams because she is the incoming congressperson starting in January, to make sure she has a smooth transition and that she doesn't have to worry about the office not being in best shape as possible for her. I don't have to take up a lot of room and make it like it's my home. I want to make it, go ahead and that part is not important to me. What's important to me is to be able to engage on the thing that's right in front of us. And so I've reached out to various people. And again, I tried not to look like I'm, just kind of getting ahead of my skis, if you will. Not that I know how to ski or anything, but if people say that, just not trying to get ahead of myself. But I do have a lot of friends in Washington who have offered quite a bit of insight on what is tangible and viable to work on and to push forward, that we could actually, show some real results in a short period of time. I've talked to Ambassador Young, who has, obviously a wealth of knowledge, and he's willing to advise me through the process as well. And then Congress people and staff members from around the country.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that Congressman Young, Ambassador Young was one of your mentors many years back. Forgot to put that in. You really got into another question that I was going to ask, and I'm really glad you touched that, because the one thing that I've seen is, you have these petty jealousies that crop up, and all they do is hurt the people that we're supposed to be representing. So I'm glad to see that you and Ms. Williams are communicating, and that you have that plan, that part of the plan established. Ms. Chatman, do you have any other questions?
Let me ask you a question. I know Congress John Lewis lived over in the Suntown area, and it's a lot of things that need to be done over in the Cascade area, like the post office off of Fort Industrial. Would you try to put something on the table to kind of get that? I know the roads are being done over there. That's on the T-Plots, right?
Yes. So the way I look at it is, when you get a moment to make your ask, you need to be prepared, right? So my approach is, I'm not trying to get ahead of myself, but I've been hearing from various constituents like you all, there are things that are missing that are needed. There's some big infrastructure things that are needed to improve roads and bridges that could be federally allocated. There are also things around transit to make some solutions for that. There's some infrastructure like these post office all could be upgraded. They're kind of lackluster. I know there's talk about some improvement to the postal system. That's been another beef between Republicans and Democrats on how that's done. So that conflict has also created some discord between the two bodies. But it really does make sense to figure out how we reinvent the postal service. I think when you look at how the post office operate, and in light of the fact that we're now in a new era of the way of life we're in, they all seem like they're kind of desolate little places, like the one even here on Piedmont. They all are like run down. They could be a little bit nicer. They could be like a little restaurant next door, a little cafe. It could have something that you could use. It could have a Wi-Fi cafe that kids could go. It's like they're there and they're closed and they're not even active like they could be. So if it's going to be an asset that the federal government has in the community, it should be an asset that the community could use a little bit more. It takes up a lot of land, usually an acre or two in some cases. And sometimes they're on not usable sites, but in other cases, I'm like, the site could be more than just the post office. You get what I mean? So maybe it's a redevelopment of those sites that gives you a better experience and gives you some other amenities in neighborhoods that need additional amenities. Like when you're on Fulton Industrial, I know the one exactly you're talking about, it could be an amenity for South Fulton. It could really be a nice ad. And even the one on Herring right off of Cascade across from the Beautiful. That one's been there for a long time. A revitalization of that one and the apartments in Dolphin, that would be a nice thing. You get what I mean? So we could use it as a catalyst to revitalize our community. That's what the federal government could be leading on in partnership with HUD or the Economic Development Agency out of Commerce.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Mr. Paul.
You're welcome.
I have, getting a feedback here. I had run out of questions, Mr. Hall, and I know you're under a time constraint. So would you like to make a final statement for our audience?
Yes, thank you so much again to WCEG for having me. It means so much that you were able to make time out of your day to give me a few moments to answer questions that have been on your hearts and maybe the hearts of constituents that you engage with, and give me a chance to also share some of my perspective on leadership, my track record, and what I offer. I think I'm the right person right now, as Congressman Lewis's son, John Miles Lewis, has said in his endorsement. If there were another time under other circumstances, I may have not been the right person, but under the circumstances, the challenges that we have in front of our country, the track record and experience that I have in getting things done in elected government, a governmental body that, in federal government is even bigger than city and school board. It's a giant albatross of an animal, a monster of bureaucracy that you've got to know how to navigate very quickly. Just getting through the enrollment process as a new employee in the Congress takes weeks if you don't know how to move and navigate. So we need someone who can step in right now, and I believe that I'm that person. I have a track record for economic development, a track record in education, a track record in leadership around justice reform. Those are the things that are right in front of our communities, the communities, especially on the south side of the district. And I'm offering myself up as a public servant to put the people before myself, to put the people before the big interests and the lobbyists and even my colleagues in Congress. The people of District 5 deserve a voice right now. And I'm Kwanza Hall. I'm running for Congress, and I'm available to anyone, www.kwanzahall.com. I'm on social media at Kwanza Hall on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'm available, accessible for any questions that you have. And thank you again for having me, WCEG. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. And it's really been our pleasure having you. And we'd like to remind our listeners that December 1, 2020 is the date, December 1, 2020. There's been a heavy turnout throughout Georgia, and particularly in District 5. And we encourage everyone to participate, to vote. Your vote counts. Your vote counts. So let anyone tell you that your vote doesn't count. And we've been speaking with Mr. Kwanza Hall, again, has extensive political and community service resume. And we thank him for joining us. We thank you for listening. And please tune in. I think tomorrow we'll be on. And for another issue of Issues and Answers. And thank you, Ms. Chatman, for being with us and helping us out with the questions. And again, we thank all of you listeners for being with us today. Remember, it's nice to be important. It's more important to be nice. We'll see you the next time around on Issues and Answers. This is Norman Carter.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.